Nice to be in Galway. I worked here as an engineer at ESB for 3 years back in the day, so good to be back in Ontario. It's changed a bit. I'm with IHR Energy Services. We're a building energy consultants based in Dublin 8. We're a sister company of Energy Action, and we work in-house consultants to Energy Action Europe EPISCOPE back 8 or 9 years now. EPISCOPE project follows on from Tabula, where within the Tabula projects, it's 14 or 15 countries develop building technology in each country, and we develop the Irish building technology. So let's follow through into EPISCOPE. So just to, I can skip through that. That's just to say 38% of our dwellings now have energy have EPCs or BER certs, energy performance certificates. Okay. So what's the EPISCOPE project is about? Basically, each of the 16 countries involved in EPISCOPE is carrying out a pilot action, and it's all about developing methodologies to track the rate of refurbishment of housing stocks. So it's to say, where are we today? What's the position of the housing stock today in terms of operations, performance? What's happening year on year in terms of changes? Where are we heading to track into 2020, 2030, 2050 and beyond? So in our case, our pilot action area actually was the Northside of Dublin City. And on the top, our German colleagues would call the basic case, or what we would say the base case, which is 2015. So in order to say where's our stock now, we looked at 3 different data sources. We looked at the SEI research tool, we've looked at national retrofit program data, and we've actually carried out a field survey as well. So we've carried out completed 100 surveys in the field, randomly selected addresses on the north side of the city. We actually contacted 200 addresses, had to do 450 door knocks to get 100 surveys completed. So, and I did a lot of that. So it's hard work. So that gave us our base case, and then that will give us our percentage stock refurbished to date for real rate of refurbishment, and then that gives us a whole, we can then project a whole other scenario analysis from that. And all 15 partners or 16 partners in EPISCOPE are doing this, and then all the results will be fed into a common European tool for cross-country comparison of the different analyses. So one of the things we did from our field survey, which is kind of interesting to see, was that we found out people what they had refurbished to date. So we got different responses there. You can just read them, I won't go through them. We also checked on the ownership of the dwelling, so whether they privately owned or rented or whatever else, and where people got their funding from. So it's interesting to notice that in a lot of cases, most people actually did work outside of any funding schemes. So, for example, wall insulation, nearly 40%, roofs, 2/3. People have done this work without getting an SEA grant or low authority for them. So that was interesting. And in fact, just at the bottom right there, boilers. 84% of people upgraded boilers without getting any grant or any local authority. So lots of people just replaced boilers as a matter of the old boiler was capped out and broke down. And okay, so there's some key findings. What we did then was we aggregated, we did our own analysis on the BEO research tool. So we put in a lot of different qualifiers to say, well, okay, no matter what age of the house, if the wall had a U value of 0.6 or better, it was refurbished. If it was higher than that, then we would say it hadn't been. We took note of the age bands as well. So we did a very detailed statistical analysis. So we compared our field survey results and our BEO research tool results. You can see in the field survey the roofs were twice the number of annual refurbishment rates that was happening in roof insulation. The other big difference was boilers. The BEO research tool would say 2% of houses having boilers replaced every year, whereas our field survey is telling us 4.2%. So we decided we would take an aggregate of the two because we're quite a small field survey sample, but it was our gut feel was that, as we would know, a lot of people are doing work completely outside of any grant scheme to look at authority work. So we wanted to get some kind of a handle on it because we didn't want to rely solely on the BEO research tool. But the base assumptions then, this aggregate trend gave us our assumptions for kind of the business as usual trend scenario. So what we've then done is we have projected from 2015 right out to 2050 based on what we would call the trend scenarios. This is we have business as usual based on the aggregate trends that we picked up from our research, plus we've added in new build every year is being added in as well into the picture. And just to say that these values are actually primary energy values, but they're calibrated for actual energy demand. So you know yourself, you get a G-rated house, the person typically in that house, maybe you're going to use 50 to 55% of the actual predicted delivered energy. So we've calibrated all these figures, so these are actual primary energy demand projections. And then when you look at this trend scenario, the energy reduction, the base was from 2005. So We've calculated that at 2015, we're 8%, have achieved an 8% reduction on that. And the CO2 reduction is based on a base from 1990 with a target of 80% by 2050, and 2015 it predicts it minus 17%. So you can see with the trend scenario, obviously we're going to, by the 2020 target of an energy reduction 20% by 2020 is not going to be met by business as usual. And there are no firm targets as far as I know for 2030, 2050 with regards to energy at the moment. And CO2, the 80% target obviously is going to be missed. So then what we've done is we've looked at a couple of other trends. And scenario B is where we would say 25% of the stock has had a deep retrofit by 2050, and the grid has had, or you've had a reduction in the carbon content of the grid of 30%. And that gives us a kind of a trend B, which is a mid-range trend. But in both cases, the energy reduction for 2020 is not being met, and the CO2 reduction for 2050 is not being met. So our third scenario is assuming a 75% deep retrofit by 2050 and a 60% reduction in the carbon content of the grid. In this case, you're just about meeting the 2020. Well, of course, this is on a graduated scale per annum, so you're just about on the 2020 target for energy, and you will then meet the 2050 target for carbon reduction. So we can run all kinds of different scenarios. We have our model built. It's quite easy to stick in different numbers and range of different assumptions. But what we have at least achieved is, I suppose, we've modelled from about what places has in stock on the north side of the city. We've actually also developed, if we're going to the common European tool, we have developed average synthetic buildings. So we have 6 average buildings that represent proportionately the stock and their thermal performance, and that will go into a common European model for modelling all the stocks of the different countries. So amongst the European partners, everybody's presenting charts in this kind of format, and even after I did lunch today, but if you had a heavy lunch, you'd really be struggling to stay awake. So throwing these charts and tables, then we felt they give you so much information, and could you present the information in a more interesting way to capture an audience? So what we got approval from at the start of the EPISCOPE project was to develop a mapping application for the EER data. We had the experience of this coming back from different European projects, and we had developed our own database tool for loading in thousands of XML data to present for different reports. So thankfully we got the mapping application approved, and the whole idea was that we'd just run in parallel with all this other work, just to give almost be a catalyst for inspiring maybe people who have very little knowledge of the area. So maybe some images could show some results very quickly. So the pilot action area there, you can read the numbers from it. It's built. It comes down to just 12,042 small areas. So they're the smallest defined area for the census, which are clusters of 50 to 200 dwellings. So we spoke with SEAI at the very start about getting access to the data, and we had an open door in terms of cooperation. But they're very concerned, obviously, about confidentiality and data security. So they didn't want somebody to be going along to Jamie's relation in Dublin and say, "How are you? We spotted you have a rubbish boiler and you've no insulation in your attic. We saw it on the web, on the tool on the web." So they told us you can't show us building-specific information. So what we said, we would aggregate our maps to small areas. But that's pretty good. That's absolutely fine for showing trends. Okay. Okay. And this is the data transfer process, but this just basically, I won't bore you with that, but that just explains how we got the data from SEI. It took 6 months to get the data, even though we had an open door. So I'm just going to switch over now to this Jamie. Just switch over to the other. Thanks. That's actually the other one you had. Yeah, I think. That's it. Great. Thanks. So this is the mapping tool. So what we decided was, when we were bringing up, we were pressing the data from SEI, we kind of made a decision as to what data fields. We made hundreds of data fields indeed. We decided which were the key ones that we wanted to present in maps. And over here, the EPCB, or the predominant. So we can select this is the drop-down menu at the top. You can select from this drop-down what you actually want to map. So what we have are a range of different maps for building age, wall type, roof type, roof insulation level, window U values, etc., etc. So I'll show you a selection of these now, but you can peruse them at your leisure at another stage. So the first map is building age. This is the contrast button here, which just brings everything up a little bit more. So you can see we have the ages here, and you can see the small area boundaries are shown. So you can peruse this at your leisure. This is all available on the EPISCOPE website as well on the home page. So you can see some of this red area here is down at the docks that's newly developed, and then the other areas which are red, which are the newer areas, are out in the fringes and a couple of little small infill sites. So what we were able to pick up from the BR data as well was the wall type. So this becomes much more interesting when you're looking at retrofitting.
The slide was down to 0.
Yeah. Thanks. Okay. So
just click with the left button on the device. There.
I'll actually get out of this for a second. Fresh. It'll help. Okay. Okay, so these are the wall types. So what's actually very interesting here, the colours don't quite come up as clearly as you'll see them if you try them out yourself. But the cavity wall areas are shown in yellow, and the hollow block is in green. So you can actually fairly quickly see which are the predominant types. Over here, asterisk indicates that when you pan in much more closely, zoom out more, these pies appear. So pi actually shows what's the makeup in the particular small area. So you can see if the cavity wall area is one of many types of wall area in that particular small area, or if there are a number of different wall types. And when you click into one of the individual boxes, along the bottom comes up the small area code, plus also the counts of the number of wall types within that small area. So when you heard this in asterisk, you can drill down to that level of detail. So what we then also developed was, but we also then decided, okay, let's show the stock actually in terms of its actual performance. So then what we've done is we've for the predominant wall type, we have the U values, and so what we have is the average U value for each small area. So here you can see what we've adopted here is the VDO rating color coding, where red is worst and green is best. So walls which have greater U value than 0.64 are shown in red, and the browns are between 0.6 and 1.64. So you can see most of the map is either brown or it's red. So it obviously shows that we've got a lot of work to do in terms of the insulation of the walls in our housing stock. We've done the same thing for roofs. Very simply, just in terms of, we've broken it down, the same color coding by levels of roof insulation. We've done the same thing for windows as well. Okay, we've also done the same thing for primary heating type fuels. Again, so the predominant obviously in Dublin City is going to be gas. But when you drill down into the small areas, you will see that there's a proportion of oil in all the small areas as well. Heating oil, these are the older areas of the city. And finally, I'll just show one more on this one, which is heating controls. So I showed you in the field survey that we saw a lot of people replace boilers. So when we go down to heating controls, and we found it knocking on the doors, red is no thermostatic control. So you can see the bulk of the map is predominantly red. So when you go into lots of houses where people put in a brand new condensing boiler, and they either have no time control, they might have none off. So I pointed this out, the guys in SCI, when they saw this, they went, oh, that's not great, is it? You know? And where so many people have brand new boilers put in and primitive on-off switches for heating controls. So anyway, and the BR map is another one which comes up as well. So you can look at that yourself another time. The second thing we've done is, because this has built on from Tabular, and in Tabular we basically broke up the housing stock into bands of U-value performance based on the building regulations they fell within. So what we've done is we've mapped the wall types by building age. So simply these are wall types for areas which have more than a minimum number of houses built within a particular age band. So again, you can see down into the older parts of the city, and then there are quite a lot of gaps. And then this is from 1800 up to, or anything up to 1977, and then 72 to 82. You have a much sort of obviously smaller amount built here, but this was the interim period between the first draft regs and the second draft regs. So we have that developed. So that's kind of a building typology map. And finally, what we've also done is we've got access to census data. So we have the various maps here for population over 75, or for this one here is an interesting one, which is a deprivation index. So what we have are the different parts of the city are shown based on where they fall within 10 bands of affluence, from the most deprived up to the most affluent. So somebody said to us, well, can you overlay this affluence data with the BER data? So we've done that. And what we've done is we've created a fuel poverty indicator map. And within this particular map, what we've done is we've overlain houses with an EF and a G rating and 3 lowest income deciles. So this gives us, again, if this wasn't a fuel poverty study, but it was only to show the capability, or just the potential that you have with mapping. And those of you who know this part of Dublin, you can scroll and kind of see a lot of the addresses actually make sense. You can say, see that, understand that. Obviously, you're missing parts, but there's many different ways that you can use the information. We've stopped the development at that stage. We had a bit of a budget in EPISCOPE, but we've way overachieved from what we thought we were going to do at the start. Our project officer attended a meeting in February. Was very impressed. Was so impressed to ask me to present it at the European Sustainability Week in Brussels, which I did in June. He's dragging different people from the Commission to have a look at it. So we're the only ones within EPISCOPE that have done a mapping tool, and I do think it has served its purpose in terms of giving a good, I suppose, can run very well in parallel with kind of refurbishment analysis and refurbishment strategy. And I think the bottom line is, and as you here know, there's a huge amount of work done in the existing stock, and we are fully aware that the BER does not fully represent the stock as it is out there, that lots of people buy older houses with incorporating, get them upgraded, and then the house is in improved state, and it's not reflected in the BERs. But the BER database is a good database, and it's useful to have it, but you have to put it in context as to what it's telling you. You can also, there's a function here where you can save maps, so you can save maps and download it as a PDF. So if you're working on something and you're interested in a particular map, you can do a screenshot of it, of course, but you can save the map and download. So all of this, it sits on the main EPISCOPE website. We're proudly positioned right at the top of the homepage. There's a vast array of information on the EPISCOPE website about what's happening in over 16 different member states for EPISCOPE projects. So, and finally, I'm just going to sign off now, just to say we're also having up running the nZEB Open Doors event for the last 2 years. This magnificent engineering building here featured last year. Pleased to say we'll be running again this year from the 13th to the 15th of November. We had 21 counties last year, so hoping we'll knock up a few more and get closer to the 26th. So that is it from me. Thanks very much.